I, James B. Comey,
do solemnly swear
that
I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I'm about to enter. So help me God.
So help me God.
As a U.S. attorney in New York, a brief tenure as Deputy Attorney General, and now as head of the FBI, James Comey, all 6'8" of him, has always enjoyed a reputation in lay terms as a Boy Scout.
Now 55, a graduate of William & Mary and a family man, he's handled plenty of high-stakes cases, prosecuting the Gambino crime family, even sending Martha Stewart to prison.
He served under George W. Bush. He served under Barack Obama. He was in high-level public service even before those presidencies.
Hillary Clinton, of course, blamed him for partially costing her the White House. The FBI opened the Russia investigation under his watch, and the president fired him.
I'm here to give you an update on the FBI's investigation of Secretary Clinton's use of a personal email system during her time as Secretary of State. Secretary Clinton used several different servers, contained information that was top secret. There is evidence that they were extremely careless in their handling of very sensitive, highly classified information. Although there is evidence of potential violations of the statutes regarding the handling of classified information, our judgment is that no reasonable prosecutor would bring such a case. In looking back at our investigations into the mishandling or removal of classified information, we cannot find a case that would support bringing criminal charges on these facts. This is not to suggest that in similar circumstances, a person who engaged in this activity would face no consequences.
He has announced publicly that no reasonable prosecutor would have brought this case. This is laughable. When Hillary Clinton put that private server in the basement of her home in Chappaqua, New York, that was all the intent that was necessary to prove that she was going to compromise classified information. We now know that she compromised over 2,000 classified emails and documents to the detriment of sources and methods overseas, including sources of human intelligence and people who were compromised. This isn't even a close case.
When you gave the press conference about Hillary Clinton in 2016 in the summer, you said, you didn't say she didn't lie, or you didn't say it's possible she lied. You said you found no evidence that she had lied. Mm-hmm. You found no evidence that she had that email server knowing that it was improper. You admit in your book that you made two mistakes in the Clinton investigation. One of them was using the phrase extremely careless to describe Secretary Clinton's handling of classified information.
We were trying to find a way to honestly describe something that was above just ordinary carelessness, leaving a document on a counter at a restaurant or something by accident, and criminal misconduct. It was between those two.
He ignored the statute that said grossly negligent. He now has a requirement. It has to be intentional, and you have to do it to harm the United States. So under the standard he set in the summer of 2016 with Secretary Clinton, I don't think Jesus could win that case.
Did you make the decision not to recommend criminal charges relating to classified information before or after Hillary Clinton was interviewed by the FBI on July the 2nd?
After. If colleagues of ours believe I am lying about when I made this decision, please urge them to contact me privately.
The FBI is releasing documents confirming that then FBI Director James Comey began drafting his public statement about the Hillary Clinton email investigation 2 months before it was complete.
You wrote the letter basically exonerating Hillary Clinton from criminal behavior before you had even interviewed her.
His job is to investigate, give the evidence to the Department of Justice, and let them decide. He usurped the function of every prosecutor in the Justice Department. He should have been fired that day.
It was strikingly odd that he, the director of the FBI, and not someone north of him on the Justice Department totem pole, made the decision. The reason no one north of him made the decision is because...
A very interesting meeting on the tarmac at Sky Harbor International Airport, as ABC 15 has confirmed, former President Bill Clinton was in town, and met up with U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch as she was arriving in Phoenix.
Her meeting with President Clinton on that airplane was the capper for me. And I then said, you know what, the department cannot by itself credibly end this. The best chance we have as a justice system is if I do something I never imagined before, step away from them and tell the American people, look, here's what the FBI did, here's what we found, here's what we think. And that offered us the best chance of the American people believing in the system.
Well, fresh new emails shed new light on that tarmac meeting between then Attorney General Loretta Lynch and former President Bill Clinton during last year's campaign when the FBI was investigating Hillary Clinton's email server. The redacted emails show the FBI under Director James Comey misled the American Center for Law and Justice when it said it did not have any further records about the FBI's response to that meeting.
You say that one of the things that affected your decision-making was some classified information about Loretta Lynch that indicates that she that would raise questions about her impartiality in dealing with the Hillary Clinton investigation. Is this information that has not yet been released in any form?
Correct.
It's not the Russian intelligence document that contains a reference to email that Loretta Lynch would not go far into the Clinton investigation. Or you're not referring to that?
I can't say. I'm not referring to anything. I can't say.
You're not
and I've gone as far, because the FBI has reviewed my book, and I'm as far forward as I can be given the classified nature of the material.
Isn't that interesting that the Justice Department approved the publication of this book that used documents that looks like that he stole from the FBI. FBI records on the President of the United States.
It was a fake investigation, and the proof is that he never used a grand jury, he issued no subpoenas, he granted immunity agreements where none were justified, he allowed the destruction of evidence, 2 computers which were under subpoena by Congress and were needed in Freedom of Information Act cases. He allowed lawyers to represent multiple witnesses in violation of DOJ policy. Wherever you turn, wherever you go, you find that Comey blocked a legitimate investigation for one reason only. He didn't want to be remembered as the person who recommended the prosecution of the first female nominee of a major party for President of the United States.
All of us were operating in a world where the polls were showing that Donald Trump had no chance.
2 weeks and a day before the final votes, our new tracking poll shows a 12-point lead for Hillary Clinton, her biggest yet.
At this point in time, she has almost wrapped this race up.
You write in the book about your controversial decision to notify Congress that you were reopening the Clinton investigation just a few days before the election. You were thinking at the time, quote, if I hide this from the American people, she'll be illegitimate the moment she's elected.
The trouble is, though, that you describe it as a worry that Clinton would look illegitimate or her legitimacy would be questioned when she won. You assumed from the polls that she was going to win. Why didn't you have on the noise-cancelling headphones that said no punditry, no polls, no press?
My judgment was, if I speak 11 days before the election, that'll be really bad. If I conceal what we're doing, it will destroy public confidence in this institution for a generation.
It was the first time you met Donald Trump. What was your impression?
He had impressively coiffed hair that looks to be all his. His tie was too long, as it always is. He looked slightly orange up close with small white half moons under his eyes, which I assume are from tanning goggles.
He was about to tell Trump about the Steele dossier. Salacious, unverified, and so explosive that Comey suggested everyone else leave the room, which they did. How graphic did you get?
I think as graphic as I needed to be. I did not go into the business about people peeing on each other.
But Mr. Comey didn't tell him that those allegations came from the Clinton DNC dossier, paid for with campaign funds to discredit him, laundered into the FBI and Justice Department, that came from sources in Russia.
Did you tell him that the Steele dossier had been financed by his political opponents?
No. I didn't even think I used the term Steele dossier. I just talked about additional material.
But did he have a right to know that?
That had been financed by his political opponents? I don't know the answer to that. It wasn't necessary for my goal.
Did you believe his denial?
I don't know whether the current president of the United States was with prostitutes peeing on each other in Moscow in 2013. It's possible.
In my view, he was trying to blackmail the president, saying, hey, I got this dirt on you. It was a meeting he set up with the president to be alone with the president.
I actually believe he's morally unfit to be president.
Did you brief him about any of the other things in the Steele dossier?
It was only about the salacious part of it.
Why? Why only about that?
Because that was the part that the leaders of the intelligence community agreed he needed to be told about, because we knew it and thought it was about to become public. We knew it and thought it was about to become public. I gave that unclassified memo to my friend and asked him to give it to a reporter.
You have someone who was fired as the director of the FBI, removing 7 documents from the FBI, 4 of which were deemed to have classified information, and then giving them to a friend for the purpose of leaking them to the media.
See these redacted areas? They incriminate Comey because he said he didn't release classified information. At the bottom of a number of these pages, it says classified.
Mr. Comey and others should be very nervous about the fact that they, too, might have to face the rule of law.
Fox News confirms that Comey is under investigation by the Justice Department's internal watchdog, the Inspector General, for leaking the memos, whether he mishandled classified information, as well as his communications outside the FBI, including reporters. Of the 15 pages of memos, 8 contained classified information at the secret, which is highly sensitive, or confidential level. And that seems to be at odds with Comey's congressional testimony after he was fired.
My thinking was, if I write it in such a way that I don't include anything that would trigger a classification, that'll make it easier for us to discuss within the FBI and the government, and to hold on to it in a way that makes it accessible to us.
But in this very first memo in January of 2017, Comey knew his conversations with the president were sensitive and not public information. I am not sure of the proper classification here, he wrote, so have chosen secret. Please let me know if it should be higher or lower than that.
Here's one of the 7 memos that Comey had. He wrote it, his name's at the top, and it says classified by director, and then it says classification secret, which is the second level. The moment Comey took this out of the FBI building and took it home with him, he is arguably committing a crime, mishandling of classified information. And if he gave this document to somebody else unauthorized, Daniel Richman, and one other person that I'm aware of, and that'll be coming out, he committed yet another crime. And by the way, he can't say, well, I redacted parts of it. The content, not the labeling, dictates classification under the law.
A former colleague of yours at the FBI has said you have damaged the FBI irrevocably. It's become one more institution now that the public don't trust. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, that's nonsense.
FBI directors are not supposed to let emotion and political considerations influence government investigations, but Comey doesn't even hide it.
My wife and girls marched in the Women's March the day after President Trump's inauguration. At least my 4 daughters, probably all 5 of my kids, wanted Hillary Clinton to be the first woman president. I know my amazing spouse did.
He surrounds himself with his own cult of personality.
You met with President Obama after the election.
Yeah, he held me back after one of the very last meetings I had with him after the election, and he said, but I want to just tell you something generally. I appointed you to be FBI director because of your integrity and your ability. And then he looked me in the eye and he said, nothing has happened, nothing, in the last year that has changed my view of that.
This is a man who is revenge-driven, who is prepared to leak through a law professor at Columbia, who is prepared to disclose confidential conversations he had with the president-elect and the president of the United States. He's exactly the wrong person to have headed the most important law enforcement agency in the United States.
They provided false information to a FISA court as part of a conspiracy to frame the incoming president of the United States.
Do people come up and confront you when you go to the grocery store or you're standing in line at the airport? What do they say to you?
They say things like, thank you for telling it like it is, thank you for being a person of integrity.
We've all learned a little bit more about Jim Comey as he goes on his morality tour.
You know, he went to law school, but they don't teach the first law of holes there. The first law of holes is when you're in one, stop digging.
Nothing. No case, no source, no fear of embarrassment is worth jeopardizing the gift of integrity.
People both currently in the FBI and formerly with the FBI consider Comey to be a dirty cop.